Coming up.
When we're talking about large-scale events and communication over there, the first thing that we're taking into consideration is safety, because most of these events includes maybe thousands of people that they have to work around, plus all the visitors and spectators for those events. Now, if we're talking for large-scale events that we have every 4 years, usually the preparation starts around 2 years before the opening ceremony. In large-scale events, you may have, I would say, 70 up to 500 million people watching that event. So I would say that percentage of error has to be the minimum of the minimum, so you can make that a success. I would say plan B as a whole note, but you do have redundancy. Redundancy is a key factor in what we are doing, especially with communications. Communication is a tool that actually no one needs to know that exists. If someone is complaining about communication, it means that something is going wrong. Imagine that the locations that we are talking about, maybe it's a tropical country, maybe it is a country that it is too cold outside, maybe the humidity is more than 100%.
Welcome to Making Waves, the podcast where we explore the technology, people, and real-world challenges shaping the world of critical communications. From PMR radio to next-gen broadband, we talk with industry experts and frontline users to uncover the pain points, innovations, and decisions that define performance under pressure. If it keeps teams connected when it matters most, we'll be talking about it here. I'm Stuart with my co-hosts Hauke.
Hi, everybody.
And Luna.
Hello.
So, what do we have today, Lona?
Today we're going behind the scenes of some of the world's biggest sporting events, where a drop call isn't just annoying, it can be dangerous. Few people know this world better than our guest today, John Mantas, Team Lead Account Manager for Motorsports and Global Events. He and his colleagues have helped design and deliver communication systems that simply cannot fail under extreme pressure, where precision and reliability are everything. John, welcome to the podcast. Happy to have you here.
Nice to be here.
To start off, could you just tell us a bit about yourself and your role at Riedel?
Yes, so my name is John Mantas. I am currently responsible for giving solutions and the commercial part for motorsports. So basically it is professional communications for large-scale events or motorsports. So I'm in this position for the last 3 years, and it's pretty exciting and pretty interesting.
In setting up comms infrastructure for a global sporting event, there are many things involved. Can you give us an overview about what you and your team have to organize to make it happen?
Yeah, first of all, when we're talking about large-scale events and communication over there, the first thing that we're taking into consideration is safety, because most of these events includes maybe thousands of people that they have to work around, plus all the visitors and spectators for those events. So usually we have to take into consideration the needs for all the different parties that needs to take place and bring the show into your TVs, more or less, or on your screens nowadays. So after we have clarified all the needs from all the stakeholders, then we have to see what is the best solution for them to communicate to each other. So that means that one of the biggest considerations is the infrastructure. So infrastructure is always on the core of our systems. That means that how many people or how many resources can use the same infrastructure to do their communication sets.
How do you do those planning kinds of things? How to figure out how many channels you need? So there are many things you need to plan for, right?
Yeah, so we have to break that down to, I would say, 4 different pillars. First of all, it is the location. Country is always important because there is also, except of the international, but there is also local regulations that we have to apply with. So that means we have to consider and comply with the local authorities and frequencies. That's the first thing. The second thing is a lot of meetings with the stakeholders to understand their needs. So how many people they are going to be involved, how many channels they need, if we can optimize instead of having 2 channels, then to bundle it in 1 channel. So all this takes a lot of time upfront talking to the stakeholders about what and how we want to implement this one. And the third thing I would say, it is more or less the safety part, that what we need, what we do in an emergency case, we are usually the comms are blowing out the system. So that means that everyone is on the comms and they are talking to each other. So that means that we have to calculate it, what would be the worst case scenario, and if we have enough resources to cover that one. And the last thing actually has to do clearly with logistics. So how to transfer that to one location, set it up, run it, pack it up, and then send it back to the warehouse.
Talking about logistics, I mean, I assume there must be a massive planning period before you actually can do an event. So what is your typical lead time for that? When you start planning an event, and what are the steps that you have to take before the event actually happens?
It depends on the type of the event. If we're talking about motorsports, actually it never stops. It's a circle that goes round around season per season. I would say that we have just a small gap around Christmas time, so maybe 1 or 2 weeks. But other than that, the preparation is happening during the season for the next season. So imagine that usually after, I would say, July, August, we already do the preparation for next season. This is for related for motorsports. Now, if we're talking for large-scale events like maybe the Olympic Games that we have every 4 years, usually the preparation starts around 2 years before the opening ceremony.
Wow, that's a long time. And I mean, it's a complex thing to do. You have those different regulations in different countries. You need to make sure you get the right frequencies. They need to be in the right band. You need to prepare radios that are capable. You need to have infrastructure as well, being capable, sending in those frequency bands. That's a complex thing. Is there anything very specific that you would say that is different from deploying communication system in public safety or industry events, industry buildings and things like that?
I would say in the core, the principles are the same. The biggest difference is that in large-scale events, you may have, I would say, 70 up to 500 million people watching that event. So I would say that percentage of error has to be the minimum of the minimum so you can make that a success. I think that's the biggest difference. Other than that, it's exactly the same course. You have people that they need to communicate in a professional and specific way, and you just have to create these streams that can go from point A to point B.
That's probably the reason why there are not so many players in that field, right?
That's
there
correct.
are many that could do it, to deliver this reliability, to have this availability. Failure is not an option when you are about to supply a system for events like that.
Correct.
Are there ever moments where plans have to change just the last minute?
Actually, one of the first principles is that no matter what plan you're going to do, you're going to change it. That's for sure. So starting by that. Actually, we have to remain flexible as much as possible because there is always things that you have never thought maybe 2 years ago that will happen. And then you also have to steer the whole ship into a different direction so you can make the event work out. So there is always things happening until the last minute. The good thing is that because we're working mostly with the same group of people, technicians, project managers on site, then you know that you're going to trust them and you're going to find the perfect solution for every occasion that you have. That's the nice thing, that the relationship that you're creating with the people around, and because you're spending so many hours on the field, that you know that no matter what's going to happen, there will be a solution, even if it is a last-minute solution that the event will carry through.
Are there any misconceptions about how mission critical these systems really are during an event?
Maybe a few years ago, but I don't think that now. People are now realizing that also, first of all, the safety that you have to take care of events like that is on the highest priority, that you have to have an event that everyone feels safe to come and visit, because at the end, we're doing that for the people, that the people that they want to watch or be part of a big event. But that means that the safety is the number one for that one, and it's really important for us. I think the misconception it is that, okay, it's just, let's say for Olympic Games, it's only 2 weeks, but actually for us, it's a 2-year work to pull out these 2 weeks. So I think that the timing, people don't realize it, how much effort it takes. And of course, the logistics, because nothing of this is permanent. Sometimes we are using permanent installation to expand it or to attach to that one, but most of it is just temporary.
So to pick up on that then, really these things are temporary deployments. They're just like a circus. They move from town to town in effect. So when you've unpacked, you've done all of your planning, you've spoken to all of the people on the various different sites, you've done it all in advance. How do you mitigate that last minute change? You get there, you've got your frequencies assigned and it is a bloodbath in terms of radio frequencies. It's a very radio dense little climate that you're entering. Maybe there's a new circuit that has been introduced, or maybe it's an existing one, and there's a new building that's been put up since last time you were there last year. How do you guarantee, with 500 million viewers waiting to watch and be entertained, how do you mitigate those last minute changes?
First of all, we are having as a department a dedicated one called frequency management, where we're getting all the frequencies, then we are testing all the frequencies. So if we're talking about interference, but let's say that all the frequencies we got everybody, it's correct. But there is one guy that he's transmitting in a not given frequency and interferes with our system. We have people and technology on site that we can find exactly where the transmission starts, so we can go and say, please stop transmitting or lower your transmission. Plus, usually we also have the local authorities with us. That means that there is always someone from the local authorities over there that he's checking also the frequency band that we are using, and then he can also say that if it is all clear or not. That's the one thing. The other thing is, let's say that we have a new building that it wasn't there last year or it wasn't there the last time. Therefore, we do have a lot of testing happening, site visit, plus there is a lot of practicing if we are talking about motorsport. That's why we also have the free practice in almost every series, that we can assure that no matter what it is, that you have coverage all over the racetrack, and of course that you have good quality audio from the vehicle up to the back to the box.
So you've got to plan and then plan again, it sounds to me, for these types of events. These are events that they have a compelling date. They don't move. You have to meet the date. You get there and maybe something doesn't work. So you have backups for whatever you were planning to do. You have some kind of plan B scenario, I guess, as well.
I would say plan B as a whole not, but you do have redundancy. Redundancy is a key factor in what we are doing. So we are trying to have redundancy from the most simple things, like say power. So you do have the main power leads, but you also have generators over there. So you are not going to run out of power. Then if we're talking about network, you do have network redundancy. If we're talking about communication, there is always net radio redundancy. If we're talking about base stations, redundant controllers, redundant carriers, redundant antennas, and so on. In some cases, we do have a redundant base station standby if something goes wrong. So all this is taken into consideration that you should have at least one redundant material. And because you have to calculate also the logistic costs, you cannot, for example, take 4 out of pieces. So that means that you have to find out solutions that okay, if I take 2 of those, it will be enough to do the job. And if the third is needed, then the third is supposed to be somewhere used not for one purpose, but maybe for multiple purposes. Because again, logistics is also a big part that no one is understanding, if not being there on the setup to see how much material we are carrying out.
So if you've done your job correctly, then nobody will ever know. It'll be seamless, even if there is a problem. But have you ever had that experience where your planning and your backup systems have actually saved the day for you?
Yes, of course, multiple times actually. So especially with communication is a tool that actually no one needs to know that exists. If someone's complaining about communication, it means that something is going wrong. And in that case, redundancy has saved us a lot of time, because imagine that the locations that we are talking about, maybe it's a tropical country, maybe it is a country that it is too cold outside. If we are talking about winter Olympic Games, for example, maybe the humidity is more than 100%. So always the redundancy is there to, first of all, give us an easy sleep at night. That's nothing will go wrong tomorrow, or that we know that the tool that we are providing to our customers or clients will be available 100%.
It sounds like your equipment needs to be capable handling all different kinds of harsh environmental conditions, getting from hot into cold and vice versa, plus the continuous packing and unpacking that normal equipment is not seeing.
No, actually, the equipment is getting beaten up pretty good. But we are also testing, and that's why we are also looking for suppliers or looking for equipment that can withstand this really, really hard situation or circumstances. So it's always a key factor for us to select from where we're getting the material from.
John, you've given us a really good picture of, I think, the scope and also how safety is the really important thing here. But with such high-profile events, security must be a top concern. What threats do you have to mitigate, for instance, from cyber attacks, sabotage, or interference?
Actually, both are, I would say, a normal phenomenon in our daily business, so cyber attacks and interference. I would say more interference than cyber attacks, but cyber attacks also the last year are getting more and more, especially for high visibility events. So regarding security, if we are talking about network security, usually we're creating our own completely closed network for communications. That means that we cannot breach it outside, except if you are somehow connected into the network by using dark fiber mostly, or end switches that they are using. Usually they are layer 2, layer 3 switches on that one, with external security bandwidth on that one. Regarding the interference, usually we're using for the RF part Tetra with different types of encryption authentication in some of our highly visibility events, that we can ensure that there is no interference outside this one. But again, it's usually you will find it, especially in let's say if we talk about 24-hour Le Mans, it is one of the most crowded frequency-wise events that you can have. So over there, interference you know that you will have. The only thing that you can do it is be sure that it's not going to affect your equipment somehow. And for that one, we do have some solutions that we can avoid external interference touching or affecting our equipment on that one, using filtering and so on.
How do you ensure secure communications between agencies and vendors when they're all operating on different organizations or platforms?
I think this has to do with how we are setting up the whole idea of communication organizations. So usually we are having, each organization has its own identity, and they have their own talk groups that they are not cross-talking to everyone else. That means that you have to clear it, to keep it clear between the different stakeholders who is talking to who, but always keep in mind that we're using the same infrastructure to do that. And I would say that DAM is helping us a lot on that topic.
All right, but that's good. Are there any specific international standards depending on the host country that you have to adhere to?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, it is a tricky because you have, first of all, to follow the international standards and the local standards, because the customer says, I want to have the same availability as the other country, but the next country has totally different regulations. It's always a tricky game, but we manage always to find a solution on the regulation or the standards that we have to reach both from the stakeholders and also the local authorities.
It sounds like regulations are pretty different from country to country. Then.
Yes, because imagine that for an event, you are not allowed to get the frequencies that you are getting, for example, in another country. Some countries, they are giving you lower band frequencies. Some others are giving you higher band frequencies. Some others, they said, we cannot have any of that. You can only go to VHF. So that means that you have to adapt, and you should have available equipment to do all that.
That means you need to have different sets of infrastructure equipment available, base stations and other stuff, to cover the right frequency band, right?
Yes, we do. But again, if we go back to DAM, I would say that with your infrastructure, we're covering pretty much the whole spectrum of frequencies that we are operating. So I would say that's a nice addition to our equipment.
It sounds like you must have a massive warehouse full of equipment to cover all those different needs, right?
Yes, actually the warehouse, it is massive, and every 4 years with Olympic Games, it's totally empty. So, but it is a massive warehouse with a lot of equipment. We are talking about maybe more than, I would say, 25,000 different items, something like that.
It's an amazing thing. The more you think about it, the more complexity you understand. You just watch it as a viewer, but what happens behind the scenes, you have no idea. That this whole, as I referred to it earlier, this moving circus has to operate under very strict conditions and has to be very adaptable as well. You were talking about the different countries, the regulations. Regulations might even change from year to year. You can't guarantee you'll be using the same frequencies as the year before, potentially. You've always got to work out, have you got enough resources for that worst case scenario that you mentioned before? And then, as you say, the whole logistics of putting this all together. Bearing that all in mind, when you have your clients, what are the real cost pressures that you're facing? Because obviously there's no open check for all of these things that you have to provide. And how do you balance that budget versus the actual requirements of what you need to do?
First of all, usually the clients wants the best with the minimum price. So usually what we are doing, we are discussing the budget. So one of the first meetings also with the clients is what budget they have. And according to their budget, then we have different type of solutions that we can then tailor according to their needs. Therefore, I think it is crucial to know how much budget they have from the beginning and what you can offer. The only thing that it's not negotiable usually for these events is the safety or the security. So for the safety and security, even for big festivals that I haven't mentioned at all, it is really crucial. So on that one, I would say that most of the clients, they're not saying anything against that. So especially concerning safety and security, they say, okay, we need to what is the best for the people that they're going to work and also visit the event.
So when it comes to expectations, budget versus what they need versus expectations, the expectations change quite a lot over time. Are you seeing there's now a kind of push that they want more singing and dancing type technology now, rather than the kind of tried and tested solutions that you have? And if you are seeing that, what kind of things are they asking for?
There is a lot of different things because we are covering such a large scale of different type of events where what is, let's say, related to a motorsport event, maybe it's not related at all into a a high prolific Olympic game, for example, or for a festival, or for Eurovision. That's the thing. In that case, I cannot say something specific on what would be, because it changes on event per event. So even in the same, let's say, event series, if we're talking about motorsports, there is different demands for maybe Formula One than it is for 24-hour Le Mans, for example.
Let me ask you another question. Obviously, you are preeminent in your field. You do all of the larger sports events, the athletics, the motorsport, the football tournaments, etc., all the big ones. But you are probably not the only ones offering similar services. So what is it that keeps you ahead? And does the innovation of what's happening in telecommunications, does that play a key role in keeping you at the number one spot for these prestigious tournaments?
Yes, of course. We try to take advantage of the newest technologies as soon as possible. That is always key in what we are doing, because if you put into the equation the logistics, if you can do the same thing with less material needed or less weight, because don't forget about weight, to travel everything around the world, every kilo costs. So if you have a better way that you can do the same work or better with less equipment, less weight, of course, it will be for us game changing. So always we are having an eye into new expos, new material, new solutions, new products that we can use for our own benefit to deliver the best result for our clients or our events, or for our technicians, because sometimes our technicians are coming back to us and say, look, I have seen that and that. Maybe we can take it and incorporate it into that solution, and that will save us volume, it will save us some weight, and we can do plus a few more things that we are doing right now, or bundle up things. So it is important. Innovation for us, it's our daily business to understand and see what is outside in the field, what is the newest one, and then try to take it as soon as possible into our daily business.
You mentioned earlier that not always everything goes according to plan. Could you share a story with us where things didn't go as planned and what you learned from it?
It was in a tropical country where it started to rain endlessly for 3 days in a row. And of course, we have rain covers for the equipment and everything, but the humidity was really high for most of the part that we were over there. Nevertheless, most of the equipment survived. Not a few new switches that we said that it was a little bit better. It was a little bit cheaper than the normal ones that we got. So that, I think, teaches us that sometimes you have to spend or invest a little bit more money into quality products, because at the end, in the hard environments that we are using the equipment, it will be for our own benefit. That is one of them. Many examples regarding weather-wise. Interference is also a big issue on our stuff, but luckily we do have mostly the local authorities and the frequency management close to us on that one. There is a lot of things, a lot of things that can go wrong, but at the end, we do have the solution to move forward.
Oh, interesting. So you have equipment with you like direction finders, digital direction finders, as well as spectrum analyzers to find potential interferers and things like that?
No, but if we're talking about, let's say, having in the same place more than 10,000 radios, and not only radios, you also have 5G for broadcasters. You also have different type of networks, point to point, maybe Starlinks. So it is really frequency dense environments, and you have to keep everyone into what they have been given if you want the event to move to roll normal with no issues or without any issues that can destroy or affect your communications.
What advice would you give to someone designing the first event-based critical comms deployment?
Be patient, and for sure something will go wrong.
But being patient is quite a challenge when things start failing. Keeping in mind, all depends on the comms system.
Actually, no, don't get me wrong. Patience goes with delivering things. You don't have to stress things. That's the thing. If you're going to stress things, sometimes it doesn't work for your own benefit. We do have a deadline that the event will start and millions of people will watch it, but you have to be patient on designing the event, because the more time you take on the preparation, the less headaches you will have during the event. That would be my advice.
I assume it is pretty difficult to focus on the problem solving when people are getting upset and maybe even start screaming and shouting. Do you protect your team from those, let's say, distractions?
Exactly. You have to give the team the time and the space to work. First of all, whenever something is not working correct, we already know that. that means that we are already on that. That means that even if you come and scream into my ear, I will listen to you. Be sure someone already in my team is already taking care of that. Sometimes it'll be a really quick fix. Sometimes maybe it will take longer. But no matter what, we know our equipment, we know our solutions, and we're trying our best to give the quickest solution as possible.
How do you train and prepare yourself for such situations?
I think you get trained event per event, that's for sure. You cannot go straight on the penthouse if you don't start just stepping up on the ladder for the first floor. This is how I see it, at least.
What would be the one piece of kit or principle you wouldn't do an event without?
You're always going to see me with a radio in hand, especially during the events. I will always have a radio trying to scan at least as many of groups as I can. And principle will be that no matter what's happening, you have to remain calm, no matter what's happening. Because if you're going to get stressed and you're going to lose your temper, you will never going to give a solution. And usually by keeping it calm, you have a clear head and then you can think or come with a solution faster than just being stressed. You have to keep the balances. It's a game of expectation and balances. This is how I see it.
And knowing you as I do, John, you are always a very calm guy. I mean, it's very easy to say. It's not very easy for most of us. We'd be carrying that radio around the track and we'd be losing it a bit. But I think you're the right guy for the job that you have. I think we've covered a lot of ground. I'm just going to look back at what we've done here. We've looked at the scope and the pressure of global events in your world, and you've talked a little bit about clarifying the needs for us, what needs to happen in various countries, the regulations that you have to abide by, the fact that you always have to look out for the worst case scenario, the whole area of logistics we've talked about, the safety concerns as well, went into the reliability and environmental challenges that you spoke about, the fact that you rely heavily on redundancy and have actually called upon it from time to time. No mean feat, but of course you have got up to 500 million viewers relying on you. We talked a little bit about the security compliancy and interoperability, and we were talking about the importance for you to have closed networks and where you can, the use of dark fiber to enable that, and of course the employment of encryption as well, which people probably are not thinking about when they think what goes into having a radio network at what is just a sports event at the end of the day. And then we talked a little bit about cost innovation and the client expectations, and you talked a little bit to us about the need for having tailored solutions based on what was the expectations of the client, but also their budget as well. Very, very interesting insight. We talked a little bit about the lessons, the stories and advice, and the key one that you mentioned, basically, when you've got your radio in your hand, you've got to be patient. Patience is part of the planning and preparation is key. So I think we covered an awful lot of ground there. And I just want to say thank you very much for your time today. Now, it could be, because we have quite a varied audience listening to this, that some people are inspired and think, oh, that does actually sound like quite an interesting job. For those who are interested to go that way, maybe they're coming out of university or whatever, what advice would you give those people who want a job similar to yours?
Start from really low. Honestly, and then you're going to climb up the ladder, that's for sure. You cannot expect to be in the highest levels just by the first day. If you're going to get there, it's going to be really hard to stay up there. So you have to be resilient and you have to be patient again to climb up into that one. But start as low, especially for motorsports. Many people see Formula 1 and they say, I want to be there, but leave it on the side. There is many other series before Formula 1. You can go to WRC, you can go to Formula 4, Formula 3, Formula 2. You have to gain experience, because we like it or not, most of the things that we are doing in our daily jobs, even if you're going to learn it today in the university, tomorrow maybe it's going to be already outdated in our daily job. That means that you have to start gaining experience by doing stuff. And if you're going to be there, be focused, be resilient, for sure, you're going to climb up this ladder.
Excellent. Great answer. Okay, well, if you found this episode interesting, then why not subscribe? We're available on all the major podcast platforms, and by virtue of recording this in video, we will be found on YouTube as well. Just type in Making Waves. All that's left for me is to thank our guest today, John Mantas.
Nice to be here. Thank you very much for your invitation. Much appreciated.
It has been a pleasure to have you, and thank you very much to my co-hosts, Hauke and Lona.
Thank you.
I'm Stuart, and that's Making Waves. So until next time, goodbye.